but I heard music, which sounded like the most beautiful laughter of children. Or I thought, angels, the cherubim. Hi friends. So as I was narrating this account, I realized that some of the portions of this narration are a little bit hard to follow. The way I guess that the person was expressing themselves seems a little bit fragmented maybe, or maybe English is not their first language. So I just want to apologize for some sections that might sound funny, might not make exact sense. Even as I was narrating it, I was trying really hard to figure out what they were trying to say so I would know where to put the emphasis, the tone, and all that, but I really couldn't figure some of these out, so I apologize ahead of time. The overall story is really interesting and really captivating, so I hope you guys can just kind of continue listening to the end. Thank you. Enjoy! Alright guys, today's NDE is by Kelly. On May 7th, 1978, at about 10:20 p.m., I was involved in an accident which, in the words of the EMTs and the police, should have been fatal. The should was, of course, in terms of earthly logic. The experience I'm going to describe occurred outside the box of earthly logic. The accident was preceded by 3 premonition events. After I had stopped the car at a stop sign, I looked across the street, saw a parked ambulance and thought, oh good. I retrieved my partial denture from the glove compartment and placed it in my mouth thinking, you want to look your best. This was odd because I was only driving a short distance from home to my parents' house. I had already taken a shower and put on cologne thinking, you never know who you might meet. I made a left turn at 10 miles per hour. I did not see the car coming toward me at 70 miles per hour, which was being chased by the city police, also at 70 miles per hour. The car swerved into the left lane and hit me head on. My car was totaled. I was told later that it had spun around at least 20 times, and upward of 200 people from the neighborhood had gathered to watch. The car that hit me went on to hit a pole, and the driver escaped from the car he had stolen. From where I was, I heard the deafening crash and my own deafening screams below me, as I later surmised. I had been spiritually catapulted right through my neck and into the embrace of Mary, the Mother of God. Mary is frequently referred to in religious literature as the neck of the church. I had no sense of my body, including my neck, and I saw nothing at first, but I heard music, which sounded like the most beautiful laughter of children. Or I thought, angels, the cherubim. It was more beautiful than any music I had ever heard on earth, and I felt that the angels laughed when good things happened on earth. I felt that this was the music of the spheres. The angels, whom I never saw, were like petals of a rose that unfolded me with love. I felt safe, free, and certain that this was the gateway to heaven. I cannot describe the utter joy and peace. All the while, I heard what was going on below and realized that all there is always a fraction, that what seems to be an accident here is reality there. As an Episcopalian, I perceived the fraction to be that of the body of Christ. Then I heard the words, Mary and whim, which said to me that Mary and her angels were merriment, and that God's will up there was his whim. This delineating the fraction as merry, whim, dreary will. The idea that God's will was his whim in reality, meant to me that the wind, which blows as it wills, was the resolution of the fraction. In the words of a great song, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The wind was the Holy Spirit. Then I saw what I can only describe as souls, with their heads covered as if they were monks and nuns, moving back and forth across the division between life and death. I wondered whether I was looking at reincarnation or not, and I realized, in a very deep way, that it was an unimportant question. Clearly our Mother, Father, God, had the whole world in his or her hands. I could feel the deepest compassion for those whose deaths seemed to be pointless, and those whose deaths seemed to be a cruel joke, and for those whose grief for their loved ones is intolerable. Yet, as St. Julian of Norwich has said, all is well, and all that shall be well. I felt that I was given the answer to the age-old question of why bad things happen to good people. The answer is merry whim, and we will understand in heaven and not before. The peace I felt along with this realization was complete, and I wanted to stay there forever. I wanted to meet my relatives and move right in, but that was not meant to be, because Mary was said to me again, and this time I understood it to mean my little sister, Mary Elizabeth, a Down syndrome person who would need me at some point to be her legal guardian in case anything happened to our mother or father, which indeed proved to be the case. At once, my fervent desire to remain where I was for all eternity was refocused, and I was back in my car. When I returned to my body in the car, I was laughing rather hysterically. My laughter seemed to be an extension of the angel's song and my own humbled amusement that my time had not yet come. Suddenly, at the left car door appeared my earth angel, to quote another song. He looked the part, with a long ponytail and the kindest eyes, and had an authority that was somehow otherworldly. He motioned for me to roll down the window and told me to stop laughing immediately because the approaching EMTs might feel that I should be put in a psych ward. I said to him, "But do you know what it was like? And how funny it is that I didn't graduate?" He nodded in complete understanding, and again gently commanded me to get a hold of myself, which I did just as the EMTs and the police arrived. I believed it was a great miracle that I was able to stop laughing. I attributed entirely to the help of my very special guide. The EMTs and the police arrived at the same time, stating in unison that I was clearly innocent, which had not only the meaning that I was the victim of the accident, but also two other meanings, which I will describe later. The EMTs told me to see if I could move my right hand, and when I looked down, I realized that I was covered with blood from my head down to my hands. When I found I was able to move my right hand, they told me to turn off the engine right away. I was also delighted to find that I could move my left hand because I'm a pianist. Later, I was told that turning off the engine was undoubtedly responsible for my having survived the crash. They put a fancy neck collar on me and slowly extracted me from the car, enjoining me not to move. I had stopped laughing, but I couldn't wipe the smile off my face. I'd wanted to stay in heaven, but God had work for me to do here, and the whole thing struck me as whimsical. Apparently, I glowed, because EMTs said I did, and I thought, if you only knew where I'd been. I was filled with compassion for and appreciation of all the people who ministered to me. That was something I'd been given fresh from heaven. This peace and trusting patience was, of course, medically a sign of shock, but spiritually they were a tremendous gift. At the emergency room, no more injury was found than a whiplash, although 2 bleeding arteries had to be tied off. They put a kerchief around my head, I was sent home and instructed not to wash my hair or in any way disturb my head for 5 days. They had not found evidence of a concussion, and I was alert. They wanted to give me pain pills and Valium, but I refused because I felt no pain. The following day, my parents and Mary Elizabeth drove to Hartford to pick me up and take me home. On the way, we stopped at a healthcare center where I just happened to have an appointment with an orthopedist on that very day. The orthopedist was going to check on the arthritis in my neck, which had been bothering me for about a year. When he examined me on May 8, 1978, he found that I had no pain, and he told me that I had had a divine orthopedic correction of loss of cervical lordosis, which had caused the arthritis pain, and I should just believe it. I felt no pain for a week, but after that the pain of the whiplash asserted itself and I wore a neck collar for almost a year. Like Jacob, who wrestled with an angel, I was left with a handicap that still bothers me and reminds me of my near-death experience. Now for the explanation of the other meaning of clearly she's innocent. As a result of a conversation experience in my early 30s, I'd been attending an Episcopal church regularly after years of avoiding it. I am a PK, preacher's kid, who had not only the usual resentment of the goldfish bowl-like atmosphere of her situation, but also that her father was the source of the original sexual abuse in her life, which was characteristically followed by many more instances. After my conversion, which came about when I told a priest about my father's abuse of me, I was radiant with joy. And the priest's wife took this to be important that I had set my cap for her husband. I'm no saint, but this was not the case. I was far too vulnerable and grateful to feel God as a real presence in my life at that time to be interested in fooling around. Just before the accident on May 7, I had finished a letter to the priest telling him that I would no longer be able to attend his church, given the fact that his wife had stopped attending services because of me. I had the letter in the car during the accident, and as soon as I turned off the engine, I was relieved to see that it was still there on the seat beside me. It was good to be back on Earth and to clearly hear she's innocent, because the thought that I was suspected of adultery had been terribly painful to me. It is also true that my mother held me responsible for my father's abuse, so there was a triple meaning to that phrase. The week following my escape from death was filled with mystical signs and wonders. May 8th happens to be the feast day for the Episcopalian saint Julian of Norwich. It happened that when on May 8th I was meditating, thanking God for saving my life, I saw a vision of Jesus Christ with the crown of thorns on his head and blood running down his face and shoulders. This vision is the first of a series of visions described by St. Julian in the book she wrote, Showings in the 14th century. I had been advised by my new Christian friends that I should read the book that St. Julian wrote because they thought I would be simpatico with her. And I had begun the book but had only been able to read the description of the one vision when the accident occurred. During the 5 days that I had been told to keep the kerchief on my hair, I saw many signs and wonders, which I will not describe because of the length of all this. I will just say that I came to believe that the blood on my head was the blood of Christ rather than my own, because I had not resisted to the point of shedding my own blood, as in Hebrews. I was saved from death by God, who was not ready to take me to himself for eternity. I took care of my little sister when my mother developed Parkinson's disease, and my father had congestive heart failure, and neither was able to monitor Mary's diabetes, as she was being rushed to the hospital with reactions to inadequate management that almost killed her. I called meetings of social workers, doctors, nurses, and a prospective foster family for about a year, and finally, the foster family agreed to take Mary to live with them and adopted her sometime later. Mary lived 10 wonderful years with her adoptive family until her death through a fall in the shower, which caused her to flatline. I was her legal guardian and took charge of pulling the plug because Mother was in heaven and it was too much for Dad. So I have accomplished what I was sent back here to do. But that was a while ago, and one thing I've learned is that I will be here until my work here is done, and then I will be able to go back to the glorious place of eternal peace that I was able to so briefly visit. This was the most important experience of my life. I'm not likely now to be overwhelmed by horror at anything that happens here on earth, because I know for certain that there is a place for each of us beyond death, where the peace and joy are complete.